Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us as we recap 2021 and we look forward to the 2022 season. Today we're joined by Chief Soccer Officer and Sporting Director Chris Henderson. If you have a question in the room or on the call, please raise your hand. As a reminder, one question per turn, and please state your name and outlet before asking the question. We'll get started now with Chris.
Yeah, thanks for being here, taking the time. I wanted to touch on, I've been in this league since 1996, player, coach, executive now. And I think back of what makes successful top teams in MLS. Utilizing home field advantage. It's shown that winning 50% or more of your home games will help you have success. Chance creation, efficiency in front of goal is important. Consistency in all attacking metrics. Possession that will get you into scoring opportunities, success on set pieces, and having unbeaten runs, averaging 9 games or more. I think that's a quarter of the season. Those are the things that bring you success. Looking at this year, I think consistency would be something we have to look at. And going forward, we need to focus on consistency. 6 losses in a row, and then a summer of 11 games with 1 loss, and then turning around and having 6 more losses. So, you straighten those out, only having 5 ties. So we need to be a team that's hard to beat. We need to grind for points at times and just focus on consistency. What I'm really proud of with what has happened behind the scenes, we all want success from the first team, but the culture that's been put in place. Phil and I started about 9 weeks before the season. We worked for the first 150 days with Sportsology on mission, vision, values, our culture of ambition, collaboration, excellence, and having everyone in the building live those values. We have added a great staff. Craig Dalrymple now with our academy is working on the future, and that is so important for Jose Mas, Jorge Mas, David Beckham, and the way we move forward in building players for the future. Darren Powell at the second team and his relationship with Phil Neville and the coaching staff from the first team, second team, and the academy coaches. They have a great working relationship. We have a new performance director in Dawn Scott coming in. She's worked for the U.S. Women's National Team, the FA, a women's team, 2 master's degree, PhD. She's a great addition. Megan Cameron, also player personnel, compliance. Her history and work with roster and budget guidelines is a big help. Director of Scouting, Mark Prezant. He manages all our scouts worldwide. And looking at players, making sure we're organized there. He works alongside Sam Gregory, who's Director of Analytics, and we have data throughout the process from the very beginning of our scouting process, which is 7 steps. Data is all the way through that. And then lastly, Nikki Budalich's work with soccer operation. So I feel like we now have processes that are in place for all of this that weren't in place when I arrived. And I think this is what's going to give us the foundation for long-term sustained success. And we are working diligently on improving the first team heading into next year.
Thank you, Chris. If you have a question, please raise your hand. We're going to get started with Lauren.
Thank you, Rafa. Hi, Chris.
Hi, Lauren.
This year was the first year the team was able to be out in the community due to the pandemic. How important is it to you and to the club to have players, out connecting with the local community?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the biggest things for me is how we can become a fabric of this community as a club, and that is players, that is staff. We have had some great initiatives with Kicking Childhood Cancer that the players were involved in. The thank you to Baptist nurses and doctors that the whole team went to. The work on Patricio Ojeda, the cancer patient who came to the club. The players gave him a jersey, and the work we'll do on Thanksgiving, a food drive, holiday events. I think those are things we need to do, and when players come to this club, is talked about when they arrive, and it's important to the Moss brothers. It's important to David Beckham to make sure we are important in the South Florida community.
Next question, Michelle Coffin, Miami Herald.
Okay. Well, you said it for me. Thank you. I'm going to have a few questions, but I'll ask the first one and then we'll pass around. Right, Rafa? We can get a second one later? Okay. Phil had talked about, and you have talked about, having youth for next year's roster, a little bit more youth, a little bit more speed and all that stuff. I'm wondering where Ryan Shawcross fits in. He didn't really get to play that much this season. He's, an older guy, not a speed guy. What do you see his future with the team right now? Thank you.
Okay, on the first part with youth, Michelle, it's I'm very excited because Phil Neville is great at working with young players. One of the best that I've seen on the grass, and having them believe in him, working with them, I think there's going to be an opportunity. Early in the year, we saw Escona get minutes. Later in the year, Mabika got some minutes. So I think with what we're dealing with in the next 2 years, we're going to need to rely on youth and developing those players. Ryan had surgery on his back, so we will see how things progress with that, and then make a decision after the new year.
Thank you. Next question, Franco. Then we'll go to Austin.
Thank you. Hey, Chris. Franco Panizo,
Hey, Franco.
Miami Total Football. So I guess we don't have questions to waste here. So every sign points to Phil coming back. I think everyone in this room probably expects him to come back. Obviously, the results weren't what anyone expected. I know during one point in the season when you guys were on a good run, you said you wanted the team to finish maybe top 4 in the East. I think you said that on the broadcast. I get continuity, I understand that, but what is the reasoning for bringing Phil back in 2022 when the results were worse than last year's in terms of the standings, in terms of where you guys finished? What are you guys looking at to do by bringing Phil back in 2022?
Yeah, Franco, I think, you look at when we came in. We came in about 9 weeks before the season. We tried to make some quick adjustments to the roster without some real processes in place, but trying to improve in what we are. There's some positives in that with Gregory and Marsman, some of the signings we had. But again, Phil he's fantastic with young players. I think with what we're dealing with in the next 2 years, that's going to be very important. I think Phil is a very good coach, and I think this will give us the opportunity moving forward together to have our fingerprints on this roster, which I really don't feel like it's there yet, but it is coming, and we're working on building a team of players who are committed to our values and the way that Phil wants to play, his staff wants to play, and what we want at this club.
Next question, Austin, then Didon.
Austin Robillard with 5 Reasons Sports. I wanted to ask about Indiana Vasilev and his status. Obviously, there was a coaching change at Villa. He was here on loan. What did you see from him this year, and is there talk to hopefully try and bring him back for 2022?
Yeah, good question. Indiana's been a great addition. We've continued talks with Aston Villa. They're going to take a look at him with the new coaching staff. If Indiana is able to come back and that's an opportunity, we'd welcome him back. I thought his energy on the field, the way he could change a game, he scored a big goal for us when he first came back. So these are the types of opportunities I think that we need to look for with the sanctions coming, and opportunity to bring players on loan where maybe some of the salaries subsidized.
Next question, Didon. Then we'll go back to Michelle.
Thank you, Rafa. Dairon Quiroz for VDM Radio. Chris, I wanted to ask you were just talking about the possibilities of bringing players on loan. Maybe, I don't know if you're going to sign up any player due to the sanctions, but which are the main positions that you want to cover for next season?
Yeah, I mean, some of it based on some of the conversations we have right now on player movement. There could be some players that move, that deals come to us that we will look at and take, and that may open up a position that we're not thinking of. But I think, the spine of the team in MLS is very important, and it's usually where teams spend their money. A striker, a midfielder, a central defender. So I think building from a good spine of the team is important. As we make changes, some of those negotiations are happening, some trade talks are happening. So, we have to see how those play out and how we're going to fill those positions.
Go back to Michelle.
Keeping on that theme of player movement, trades, and all that kind of stuff, obviously you guys have the financial restraints now that you have with the sanctions and all that. So you're going to have to get rid of some players who maybe are some of the more valuable players on the team, who are sometimes the better players on the team also, not always the case. But the players that other teams are interested in are also the players that your fans love the most in many cases. How do you go about making those decisions, and how many, if you had to estimate, how many of that level of player do you think that you're going to lose, and how will you explain that to the fans? That you're going to have to maybe get rid of players that they love and who have played well, not necessarily players that didn't play well.
Yeah, good question, Michelle. I was one of those players when I played who got moved around. But, I think players know it's part of the business. I think there will be opportunities where if you have good players on your team, teams are going to ask for those players. And often it's the same players getting asked from multiple teams. And we will listen to every offer, and we'll evaluate how maybe the player that would come in, how they will connect with other players we have. And we have to be able to build a team that has players that complement each other. So we will look at opportunities to improve our team. We will look at opportunities to support our salary cap and how we're going to move forward. Again, I said young players is one. Loans are another possibility. And it may be that it's about trust and trust of what we're building and where we're going, because maybe the next player comes in, becomes a fan favorite for everyone here as well. And we want to make sure that we are being strategic in the way that we build around the core players here.
We're going to take a couple questions from the call. First with Steve Brenner, then Tom Bogert.
Hey Chris, Steve Brenner here, working for UK Media. I mean, you've obviously been involved in a lot of pre-season roster changes throughout your career as a player and as a general manager or whatever, but how problematic have the sanctions kind of been in terms of being able to build? Because I assume you've never really had this sort of situation before. It must be a huge problem in terms of planning, I would have thought.
Yeah, I mean, there are some moves we can make that will minimize it, and we're looking at all of those. Some of those go down to what I talked about just now, what kind of offers come our way, whether we are trading a player for just general allocation money, that's an option, or whether we trade for a player and a combination of player and money. And again, as I said, Phil's great with working with young players. We're going to have to give opportunities for young players to come through. There are some challenges for sure, but with every challenge comes opportunity. An opportunity for a young player to step up, for another player who hasn't had a lot of minutes this year to make an impact in the roster, and that's how you find good players. So I think the focus on the process of how we bring players in is really important, and I feel very confident now on what we have in the front office through the coaching staff to help us minimize the risks on our signings.
Next question, Tom.
Thanks, Rafa. Thanks for taking the time, Chris. In kind of talking about the theme of flexibility and expectations for the offseason with the sanctions and everything, a lot of fans and people look at the top of this roster. I know it's early in the offseason, but would the expectation be that all three DPs are back next year?
First, all three DPs are under contract, so I think we listen to offers, and Rodolfo's one. We all watched the U.S.-Mexico the other night, and why Rodolfo's not in that team, I don't understand, because he can unlock things around the penalty box. So I would expect that, the next round Mexico is bringing him in. We're moving forward with our DPs, and I think we're looking at all options, listening to all options to help us improve the team.
Next question, Jose.
Thank you, Rafa. This is Jose Rodriguez from Deporte Total USA. Hi, Chris. I wanted to ask you a little bit about Edison Ascona. As a player that, showed some talent, recently played with Dominican Republic under-20 national team, was able to score a couple goals there. but we did not see him this year at all with the first team. Where is he in the process, and do you envision him having a bigger role next year? Thank you.
Yeah, good question, Jose, and thanks for bringing up Edison. He had a great goal last week for Dominican, showed his acceleration, a great finish from the top of the box. He's a player, yeah, we have high hopes for. He started the season playing some minutes with the first team, and just like with any young player, it's about finding consistency, some up and downs. You learn about your body, you learn about your everyday training with men in the environment, and he's learning and growing. And I think we're going to give him a lot of attention and see if he can progress into his next year.
Next question, Franco, then Lauren.
Chris, you were asked about the DPs. I would ask you, what's your review of how they performed this season? Because obviously the team in general, and we went through it there at the beginning, fell short in a lot of departments, but the DPs also seem statistically not to necessarily deliver as much as they should or as much as is needed in MLS. So what's your review of them? And if I could just fit in a quick second one. Phil has talked, and you have talked over the course of this season about the chemistry in the locker room and how that hasn't necessarily been the best at all times. After the season ended, we saw Rodolfo go on Twitter and like a lot of critical tweets about Gonzalo. Just your thoughts on that and how you go forward from here with those three DPs, obviously taking into account your review as well. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Franco. The first question, the DPs, I think you look at Blaise Matuidi. He's a guy who's a ball winner, and he competes every game, gives everything he has. I think super competitive, wants to win, has had an amazing career. The way that, he looks for Higuain up top, I think their relationship and some of their history together shows at times. Gonzalo, I think he was part of over 50% of our goals scored this year, so his production was actually excellent. I would say all of our DPs are super competitive. They all want to win, and they came from winning environments. So I think maybe at times they were frustrated during our losing streaks because they want to win and they care, which for me is important, that they care about the results and they're not coming here to wind down their careers. They're coming to win. And Rodolfo, as I said, he can unlock things around the box. We saw moments where Gonzalo and Rodolfo combined well for some goals together, and that was a glimpse of what they can do when they're both on and connecting with each other. So I think that group of players has the potential to carry this team. Did we do it every game this year? I think we fell short in some games, but some of that comes down to the complete team performance and confidence at times. So I think that's part of the season, is just trying to get more consistency, and when you do have a game or two, how you rebound, how you respond. Good teams will respond quickly to come back. So there's definitely tweaking to do and some work to do there. Again, chemistry with Rodolfo and some of the tweets that came out. He's a competitive player also. I think he was happy with our result in New England. We go and beat the best team in winning Supporter Shield in record fashion, and we win at their place. So soccer is a funny game sometimes, but I do think the spirit after that game was that we came as a team, and we had that at different times during the year where the group really came together and performed well together.
We'll go back to Lauren, and then we'll take a question from the call.
Thanks, Rafa. Switching gears here to talk about the fan base. You're back in South Florida, a community you know very well from being a player. How important are the fans and supporters to the long-term success of this club?
Yeah, I mean, our fans are everything. The players come out and play, and the atmosphere at our stadium is like it's unlike any other in MLS. The energy, the fans who are behind our goal, and the connection that we have with our fans. That is why I want to make sure that we win here at home, because they come out, they support us. they've been supporters through wins and losses, and I want to make sure that our players understand the importance of the connection with our fans going forward.
We'll go to Rafael Ramos on the call, then Ian.
Hi, Chris. Good afternoon. So, my question is about the list that you announced yesterday. Several midfields left, and I'd like to know if the midfielder will be the focus for the next season. Guys like Victor Ulloa and the Federico Higuain, also Chapman, some good names in the team. So, and what you can say about the some Brazilian players like Giamota from Santos and Rafael Veiga from Palmeiras?
Yeah, good question. I think midfield is an important position for us that we'll look to bolster. I think some of the players on our list we are still talking to, so we may bring some players back and see if we can work through some of those discussions and returning players. But it is a focus of what we'll look at both internally and, as you mentioned, externally. Our scouts are out looking. Mark Brazan is traveling. I will travel to South America and look at some players. It's great to be connected with good players, which we've always said. There's a lot of players around the world who are connected with our club. All the names you mentioned are fantastic players that we'd love to see play in Miami one day, but they're under contract with other teams, so I don't want to comment on the individuals exactly.
Next question, Ian.
Thank you, Rafa. Hi, Chris. Ian Hess with the Heron Outlet. I wanted to kind of piggyback off of what Rafa had just said. You mentioned getting younger, and there were a couple of guys, namely Josh Penn, Dylan Castanero, George Acosta, that were on sort of low salary, younger aged players that their contracts weren't picked up. I was curious as to the decisions there, and then also if there is an idea to bring maybe one of them back on different deals. But also there are a lot of high profile, maybe like bigger name free agents in MLS that were just announced last week by the PA. And just what you think about bringing some of them in, those sort of high profile, knowing that the sanctions are coming.
Yeah, I mean, I'll start with the re-entry draft, the re-entry list, the free agent list. Those are conversations that the coaching staff, the recruitment group is having constantly to go through possible options, players that will help improve our team, players that fit with the current players that we have, and putting the data with that, putting all the video scouting and scouting that our coaches have done facing these teams with these players. And then also, younger players are players that, this is a young league. We need energy. You need to be able to move around the field. And I think it's proven that, teams like New England have shown that sometimes their counterattacking ability, their speed, their athleticism has gotten them some good results. So it's something we'll look at. We want to make sure that as we're, not just getting younger, but we're improving. We're getting smart soccer players, players who are able to think on the field, solve problems for themselves. Discipline, we want to make sure that we're controlling our emotions on the field. I think we might have been top 2 or 3 in the league in yellow cards and probably red cards. So that's one thing. We have to keep players on the field and not have suspensions. And so that's where the smart players who are thinking come in.
We'll go to Dyron.
Chris, personally, right back and left backs are 2 positions that I've seen that you've changed a lot in names, in the lineup, and so on. So I wanted to ask you if those are 2 positions that you are looking to fill up for the next season, and if you are looking for it, how? You are going for the young players, you are going for a loan. How do you think to fill those 2 positions in case you are thinking about it?
Yeah, good question. Left back and right back, their positions we'll look at. Kieran Gibbs is coming back at left back. We'll see the depth in each of those positions, and the depth could come from players coming up from Fort Lauderdale. Some of the young players who have gone through our academy and who've had minutes with Fort Lauderdale this year will have opportunities. So I would love to have the combination of maybe a veteran player and a young player coming through for the future, where you rely on a veteran player for maybe a half to 3/4 of the season, but he's teaching the young player for the future, working behind him. Of course, being a former player, you never want to lose your position. You want to play every match. But those are the types of things with multiple competitions. You know, if you have the regular season and you have Open Cup and you have extra games, you're going to need everyone on the roster.
Last question, Michelle.
One of the things Phil talked about, and you mentioned it earlier, about grinding it next year, grinding out for ties as opposed to losing. And he pointed out, and people have pointed out, that, you know, Nashville only had one more win than you guys had, but they had like 17 ties. Your team had 18 losses, I think, something like that. So closing that gap between losses and ties seems to be a big key in making the MLS playoffs. But that also means a different style of play. When the team came here, all the talk was about, you know, attacking, creative, lots of goal scoring and stuff like that. As you're putting together the new pieces of the puzzle for season 3, does that come into play, into what kind of players you're looking for? If you're looking for players that are going to be playing for ties, and what does that mean about how the team will look next year? Is it going to be a different look of a team that's playing more for ties than doing the beautiful creative soccer that, you know, everybody here was promised at the beginning? Thank you.
Right. Good questions, Michelle. I think, yeah, I mean, when you look at the results, Nashville comparing to us, I think it is, it's a mentality of we're going to fight for every point. And I think if you look at a lot of those 1-0 games, there was moments in those games that we have to capitalize. And that's finishing chances when we have them. Being able to be a team that can create chances. And some of that comes down to holding more possession in the other team's half to help us get into scoring position to create these chances. And having players who want the ball under pressure and being able to keep the ball a little better. So I think that may be some of the focus, is getting players who can help us keep the ball a little bit more, and working on that every day. So, you know, that keeps you in games. If you have the ball, you defend less. You know, we all want to attack and go for it, and in games, you know, put teams under pressure. But sometimes you have to get through with the result, and that's the adjustments tactically that Phil and his staff have to make. Of sometimes you're playing on the road, and you know you have a way to get a result, and you play in a different way. Then you come home and you play in a different way at home, because based on the way your team plays and the way we're going to play at home, and the way the opponent plays and the way they come in. So I think evaluating all of those situations and trying to decide how we want to be on that day, but there will be a set way of how we're going to play that we will try and sustain throughout the season. But the grit, that just comes down to mentality and the individuals on the team.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you to all the media members. The press conference is going to be uploaded in the media assets folder. Thank you.
Thank you.